I grew up living in a hoarder household. If you know anything about hoarders, it means the entire house is filled from floor to ceiling with just crap and refuge and garbage. When I was 14, I seriously wanted to end my life because I just couldn't take the way that my life was. Like I was falling asleep listening to my cat eating mice alive. Like my house is full of cockroaches. It was just a very rough time. And I had a learning disability, so my report card in 9th grade was D's and F's.
Hey, got something really cool I wanted to run by and let you know what's going on. So I'm starting a group that will start taking a deep dive into each one of these episodes. So we'll collectively come together and talk about the shows, talk about the guests. I'll be bringing back some of the guests to do some Q&A sessions and really take a further dive into their story, their journey, the episode, talk about, maybe some of the things you wish I would have asked on the episodes, do some Q&A sessions and the like. As a friend put it to me, it's really like a book club, but for the podcast. So a couple times a week, we'll go in, we'll break down the favorite shows of the week, and have cool discussions around everything that we've heard, we've learned, and want to know about their journey. Some of these guests will come in and they'll teach part of, what makes them awesome at what they do. And then, as always, I'll be providing regular value and content in this group. It's really cool because this only is going to cost $5 a month to join this group. And you'll be able to come in, interact with everybody else in there. So I'll put a link right in the show notes for this that you can jump in, come have a conversation with us, and we will really deep dive into each one of these episodes and help us all rise up together. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's going to be a great show today. Having the show wasn't something I started out to do. But the day I found out somebody wanted to really sponsor the show was a really, really cool experience. So, guys, I want you to take some time to go check out Point Blank Safety Services and their new nonprofit, Blue Family Fund. These guys are doing some really, really cool things. And Stacy McGovern, who's the CEO over there, has been a dear friend, and she was a guest on the show. But these guys are literally taking, the off-duty officers and putting them out in security guard role. And here's what's cool about it is, as they're protecting our lives, they don't make a whole lot of money in that regard. No first responders are paid for the value they provide for our safety and our health and taking care of us. So these guys, Stacy and her team over at Point Blank Safety Services have really found a cool way to give back to these officers by helping them provide an additional income so they can continue to support and protect us. So do me a favor, guys. Seriously, go check out pointblanksafety.com and then go look at their nonprofit, which is Blue Family Fund. Now, this nonprofit was created because of the success of Point Blank Safety Services. They wanted to give back to the families of fallen officers and be able to give scholarships away to the families of current, police officers. So do me a favor. It would mean the world to me if you would go out and help support this show by supporting Point Blank Safety Services and their nonprofit Blue Family Fund. Just tell them Donnie has sent you. You heard it on Donnie Success Champions, and Stacy will take a tremendous and amazing care of you. Thanks, guys. All right, guys, this is going to be a killer episode. Man, Robert Garcia, good buddy of mine that we became friends because of Facebook, and, I just love his story. You are going to hear a story of persistence, a story of just getting after it. This dude comes from a rough upbringing and is humble as hell about the successes he's found in his life. Hope you enjoy this one, guys.
All right, guys, this is going to be a killer episode. I've been seeing this guy all over Facebook doing his thing, and he spits out some solid knowledge. So I'm really excited about this. Well, we're not going to hold the Air Force too much against him. Well, you know we are, but I get to do that, so it's my show. But I'm going to bring you guys Robert Garcia, dude, and I'm excited about this. So, Robert, brother, welcome to the show. We won't talk about the Air Force, but bring your ass in here and tell us your story.
All right. Well, first of all, Donnie, I just want to say thanks for having me on the show. This is quite a feather in my cap. I'm excited about the show. I've listened to a couple episodes, and it's something I'm super just amazed that I was selected, first of all. I know your standards are pretty high for the show.
Thanks, brother.
So at the beginning, I grew up like a lot of people without a lot of money. I'd love to tell you that I came from this rich family with like the white picket fence and the dog and the, two parents with jobs, but it wasn't like that at all. I'm going to get real honest with you real quick. 90% of my family was drug addicts and alcoholics. I grew up living in a hoarder household. If you know anything about hoarders, it means the entire house is filled from floor to ceiling with just crap and refuge and garbage. When I was 14, I seriously wanted to end my life because I just couldn't take the way that my life was. Like I was falling asleep listening to my cat eating mice alive. Like my house is full of cockroaches. It was just a very rough time. And I had a learning disability, so my report card in ninth grade was D's and F's. So already you could tell that I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth.
Well, we're going to talk about all that, but I'm just going to bust your chops. Dude, if I got D's on a report card, I was excited, right? Just for the record.
Right, D means pass, just barely.
Right. That's like success, right?
Yeah, and that's funny because I had very low expectations, and the people around me didn't give me any expectation. And so I ended up failing out of high school. So I had to go to continuation school, and I had this learning disability because back then I'm in that sweet spot before they had like the good drugs and the IEPs and all the things where they could, diagnose you with ADHD and help you, or ADD. And so I ended up failing out of high school, and then I graduated, failed out of 2 colleges. So it just was a continual path of failure. And it was rough, man. When I was 19, I was sleeping on the floor, and I couldn't afford meat, and I absolutely hated my life. And that's when I joined the military, and that's when things started. Well, the Air Force, but that's when things.
You said it before I could.
I saw the look on your face, Donnie. I knew you were going for it. But that gave me some structure. But I also almost failed out of my Air Force tech school. So formal education was a real issue with me. I just can't. Yeah,
let me clarify this really quick, because I had Anthony Wade on the show, and if you haven't listened to that episode, it is solid. You should definitely go listen to it. But Anthony was homeless, living on a couch before he went into the Navy, I believe. Were you actually homeless before you joined up? I mean,
I wasn't at that level. I wasn't quite homeless, but I was barely making rent. And I'll tell you something. My recruiter, the first thing he did once I took the ASVAB was he brought me a bag of groceries. Like he literally cleaned out his freezer and brought me groceries so I could have meat. He saw how poor I was. And I'll never forget him for doing that.
That's beautiful.
Things we appreciate.
That's beautiful. I mean, recruiters get a bad rap, right? I mean, my brother was a Marine Corps recruiter, and what's funny is once we got out of the Marine Corps, one of the gals he put in the Corps, she lives here. So we've run into her a couple of times, and luckily she still likes it, But that's off. You don't hear recruiters going to that level, but God, it almost sounds like that, part-time military force that doesn't really do anything saved your life a little bit.
Yeah, it provided that stability. And honestly, at the time I signed up and enlisted, it was so I could eat. Like that was the bottom line. I just knew that I knew the Air Force would send me to school and they'd give me a goofy outfit and, whatever.
Well, here's what I love about just that story is a lot of people want to tout they went in the military because they were going to be, Mr. America and defend the country. And, there's a lot of people that tout that. And I love telling people I went in the military because I didn't know what the hell I wanted to be when I grew up. I knew I wasn't going to college, so that wasn't going to be the thing. I wasn't paying my college. I love the realness that you knew you could find, 3 more meals and a roof over your head every freaking day. That almost gives me chills to think about, dude.
Well, it's also perspective, Donnie, because when you talk about, I heard you and Chris talking about the Marine Corps and how you have to, you go in the squad bay and you're with a bunch of other people all from different walks of life. And you can tell who the spoiled ones are real quick. So the ones that are crying like the first couple nights because they've never been away from home. Whereas I'm 21. I'm getting nosebleeds the first couple nights and I'm just happy because I can eat.
Right.
It's a vacation to me. And these guys are next to me. Oh, I miss my mom. I'm just like, shut up. Get out of here.
That's so awesome. And you're excited. You're like, dude, breakfast is coming in the morning.
We get chicken. So, yeah, exactly. And it's all perspective because you're grateful for the things that you don't have or that you have to earn. And so as I became like this raging force of achievement when I got in. I wasn't the best airman. I'll just be honest. I just did enough to get by, but I was like volunteering. I was going to college. I was doing all this stuff. And in one enlistment, I finished my bachelor's and 2 associates. And so I'm getting ready to get out. And you and Hoffman were talking about TAPS and how worthless it was, right?
Yeah.
What was your experience with TAPS, by the way?
Oh, it was an absolute joke. I felt, now Grant, this was back in 99, right? So I think that I went through some classes, but what I recall was it was a book with, here's your MOS, here's some sort of jobs that will go with your MOS, but it was so bad that I don't recall a whole lot of it, right? They didn't teach you what it was, and they damn sure didn't teach you how to get a job, right? Luckily for me, I had a job once I got out, which some of my friends didn't, but there was no value. Now, in their defense, at the time when I got out, I was done, right? Get me the hell out of here. So it could have been partially me with a chip on my shoulder saying, I don't give a shit what you got to say. I'm out.
Well, Donnie, there should have been a lot of jobs because Reagan was president, right?
Yes.
When you got out.
Yeah. That's a big, long finger right at you. Wow.
Away.
I'm not that damn old. No, I was a Clinton Marine, which means we weren't respected and he shouldn't even have had a military. But, which means I did a lot of gear inspections. Pull your shit out, line it up, let's do it again. So fucking Reagan.
Yeah, so it
and for you young kids listening, Reagan was a president that was back in, a few years back.
Early 80s. So my experience was pretty much the same, which is why I'm bringing up TAPS, because all the Air Force pretty much did was, this is how you write a resume. And that's almost literally it. And so what they didn't teach me, now here I am. I have a bachelor's degree in hand. I have 4 years of avionics experience on B-52s. I've graduated with all these certs and electronics experience, all this stuff. Nobody told me, you could be a technical writer and make $30 an hour entry level. Nobody ever told me things that were equivalent to what I did in the Air Force. So I moved to San Diego. I go to my friend's couch and here I am. I've got all this achievement and I think hey, I'm going to do something great. I'm going to make a lot of money and blah, blah, blah. My first job was a tow truck driver.
Nice score.
Yeah. I went from working on B-52s and learning all this stuff about electronics and avionics to towing trucks 12 hours a day, sleeping on my friend's couch in Mira Mesa.
And I want to say this for the record. There's nothing wrong with driving a tow truck, right?
No.
But I know the mindset of you go from barely able to buy a meal, right? Go into the Air Force to figure out how to get a roof over your head, square meals. You go through the process. You had to have some sort of sense of I've made it, right? And that next move was just going to be my continue rise.
Successive.
Yeah. And not that being a truck driver is a step back, but then your mindset at that point is, dude, this is not what I did all this for.
Right. It's like the Marines that get out, they're 11 Bravos and they've done all this great stuff and then they get out and they're like security guards for private security. It's not their life dream. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with honest work. I applaud anyone that, takes care of their family. But if it's not who you are and you have bigger dreams for yourself, you got to keep pushing.
Absolutely. So how long were you a truck driver?
I made it 3 months and it was seriously 5 days, 1 week, 6 days the next week, 12 hours every day, $7.35 an hour.
So what's interesting is someone should really take a poll of how long a veteran's first job is once they get out. Because we all take whatever's in front of us, right? There's no, we're like, crap, we don't have a regular paycheck anymore. Oh, they're hiring, so we take it. So that's interesting to me. Wow.
Yeah, so I then got a job. This is so random. I got a job teaching high school engineering in a low-income school, and this is a guy that had never even passed pre-algebra in high school. Like, I failed it 3 times. And so they figured, hey, you're Air Force. You're smart, right? And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. And so they wrote me an emergency teaching credential, put my dumb ass in the classroom, and within 5 years, I was nominated for Teacher of the Year, and I was running an Academy of Engineering. Like, I'd figured it out using some techniques I'd kind of invented along the way.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me reverse that. So you got a teaching job based solely on you had a bachelor's degree in the Air Force in your back pocket.
That was it.
And
not just teaching anything, Donnie, engineering.
This is so awesome. So you got some poor kids out there that learned from a guy who couldn't pass pre-algebra, and now they're building bridges. Thank you for that.
Yeah, exactly. And it was funny because the school, the engineering department, actually got a lot of funding. So we were doing like robot kits and a lot of like fun stuff. I mean, because it was a low income school, the expectation was almost non-existent. Like, I was way off in some far corner of the school, and I just could do whatever I wanted. And we had a lot of fun. Like, I mean,
except for the pay, that sounds like the dream job.
You know, Donnie, it was ROP, so they actually paid well because ROP teachers are on a different scale. So they treated my military time as teaching time. So not only did I have a master's degree, I got it right after I was a tow truck driver. So I had a master's degree and then 5 years teaching experience because of the military. So I was bumped up quite a bit.
Okay, so that's mind-blowing to me. Okay. Yeah. You did how many years in the Air Force before you went in reserves? How many years?
I did 4 years active.
4 years active. You get out, you finish up, and you get a master's degree.
As soon as I got to San Diego on my friend's couch, I enrolled in grad school on that old GI Bill. At the minute I got to San Diego.
And you get a master's degree and you're driving a tow truck.
I was driving the first stages of the master's degree, yeah. And then I finished it 23 months later.
Well, good on you. I mean, I love that progression and tenacity, especially for a guy who couldn't get past high school. That's tenacious as hell. You know, I'm not a big guy on college. That's for another time. But that's tenacity to keep pushing forward. And thank God you had the GI Bill to pay for it all the way through. So now you're teaching these young minds how to blow things up with robots.
Pretty much, yeah. And so I was not fired, but let go. A lot of the electric teachers all were let go because of funding. So I floated around for about a year, and I enrolled in a doctoral program, like right before I was let go. Like my last year of teaching, I was like, you know what, I got to inspire the kids. I got to show that I can lead from the front. So I joined the reserves, and I enrolled in a doctorate program, and I started like writing some books. So
why did you decide to go for the reserves at that point? I mean, I get it. You don't have a career path and you're trying to figure it out, but why'd you decide to jump into the reserves?
I missed the military, partial GI Bill, a little bit of pay, and I'd get to go to tech school and learn a new career. There are a lot of advantages. So
that's interesting because when I got out, dude, I was done. Right? There was nothing you were going to do to get me back in.
A lot of people are like that, and what people don't realize that have had both experiences is that the reserves treat you more like a grown-up, and there's a lot more camaraderie. Like, I was pretty miserable active duty, I'm not going to lie. Yeah. Everyone I worked with was kind of angry and just really not pleasant.
Yeah. Well, and just for the record, I didn't grow up until I was over 40, all right? So some of us are slow learners. But
I hear you, man.
But I can totally see that because under E4 in any military, your life sucks.
Yeah.
Because you're just a gopher. Go here, go here, go here,
Right. Weekend duty, take care of extra stuff. Like you're getting it all and you're barely getting paid.
Yep.
And yeah, it's you work your way up. So then by some miracle, man, because I'll tell you, Donnie, I'm not an intelligent person, but I'm a persistent person. And persistence will get you through a lot of hard times. Persistence and anger, I'm not going to lie. And I finished my PhD by 37.
Nice.
And I got a doctorate in education, and I wrote 8 books. The newest one, the one I just wrote a few years ago, was about speed learning, where I took all the techniques that I've developed over the years for a guy like me that has trouble in the classroom to learn stuff really quickly. And I wrote a book called The Next Level Supercharged, and it's definitely helped me out a lot in entrepreneurialism. So I founded a magazine 3 years ago, and then I've been a full-time entrepreneur for like 2 years. I haven't had a day job.
God, that's so awesome. So what possessed you to get the doctorate?
At the time, I was still teaching high school, and I wanted to show the students that if I was going to assign them all this work, I better be doing something. If they're going to complain about writing a 2-page paper, I'm going to tell them about what a 140-page thesis is like, right?
Right. Well, have you ever read Shaq's book, Shaq Uncut?
No.
Oh, I highly recommend it because I learned so much about Shaq I didn't know. He's the 4th highest businessman who is an athlete in the world.
Yeah.
The guy's brilliant, but he went and got a doctorate. But the reason he got his is he got tired of sitting in business meetings and everybody talking to his lawyers versus him. Right. So he went and he got the bachelor's. That didn't work. He got the master's. That didn't work. So he went and got the PhD. So they'd finally start talking to him versus all his people. So it's always interesting to understand why somebody would put them through that much nauseating learning, to further themselves.
It was a personal challenge to see if I could do it, Donnie. And it was to show people I was dead serious. Because when you meet somebody that's finished a PhD program, they've given up pretty much every part of their life for about 5 to 7 years. There are no vacations. There are no strong relationships. There are no fun times. It's one of the hardest and most challenging experiences I've ever had, and the dropout rate's like 50%. It was rough.
Yeah, I can tell you, one, I wouldn't even had that thought cross my mind. 2, I wouldn't have made it freaking 2 days, even if I was crazy enough to go through that much schooling. Just wasn't my cup of tea. What's it feel like, man, to go from poverty, growing up in a hoarder household, finding the Air Force, saving your life a little bit, giving you 3 squares, coming out, teaching kids, getting a doctorate, to now being an entrepreneur? What's that journey feel like?
It feels like comedians, this is a very strange analogy, but it's going to make sense. Like when I hear comedians like Bill Burr talking about how they worked their asses off for 20 years and then at 40-something they make it, it's kind of the same path. It feels like a sense of achievement and accomplishment, but it's been a very rough struggle. And I want to encourage anyone that's listening to hang in there, keep building your network, and to never give up on yourself. Like reach out, create that network, find those great people and support them. And it'll happen if you want it bad enough.
Yeah, I agree. How often are you battling the demons? And here's what I mean by the demons is how often does that childhood creep up on you and you're battling those thoughts of, man, am I cut out for this? Can I do this? Is this the right path? I mean, do those things creep up on you? Or maybe they've never creeped up on you, or have you learned to suppress them?
No, it happens quite a bit still, even on the drive up here. Like I'm at my sister's house in my hometown where every bad thing that's ever happened to me pretty much is transpired. And
if
so
that's not a redemption story, then I don't know what is, right?
Yeah. And I'm driving past the 16 places I lived from first to, 11th grade, because I moved around a lot because of my family's drug addiction. And it's even now that I'm done with the doctorate and I've been on Fox News and I've achieved some cool stuff, but it's still, just like any human being, it still creeps in and it still messes with your head a little bit, because I think subconsciously, especially with veterans, you have that little voice in your head that says, oh, you see like Gary Vee or Grant Cardone and all these guys, and you're like, why haven't I made it? What am I doing wrong? I must obviously be the worst entrepreneur in the world if, all these guys have made it and I'm just sitting here like haven't had a sale in 2 months. It happens to all of us.
Right.
It's natural.
Well, the one thing, and I mean, everybody's got their spin. The one thing that I've appreciated about Gary Vee, and I go with him sometimes I don't dig his stuff, but the one thing that I love that he says is he talks a lot about patience. is, he was one speech, and I don't remember what it was, but he was like, I had this young guy come up to me and says, Gary, I'm going to have to shut the company down. I don't think this is going to work. And Gary asked him how long he'd been in the business. The kid's like 6 months. He's like, dude, you're just getting started, man. You haven't even gone through the tough times yet, So that's interesting. I know you've done a lot of cool things. What's inspired you so much to give back? Because you do a lot of free advice out there. I mean, you're really helping people fix and change their businesses. Is that due to because you didn't feel like you got that on your rise, or what?
The thing that really makes me want to get up and do this every day is when it's those little things. Like somebody wrote to me one time, they just sent me an email and they said, your speed learning book helped me learn Mandarin Chinese. Thank you. And I was just
wow.
Okay. It's a guy from England. And I'm just like, okay, I wrote that book and I probably made $30 on it. But if my lunatic ramblings and diagrams helped you, I'm glad.
Dude, okay, so this is really interesting. I just got back from Ireland, okay? I met this one Irish guy, owned a small store, and he asked me what I did for a living, and so I told him, I'm a podcaster, and his response to me was, are you any good? I'm like, I don't know, but people on iTunes seem to really like the show, right? I mean, it's just an odd question to ask somebody. And he goes, well, can I find your show? And I'm like, well, do you have an iPhone yet? And so he jumped on iTunes, and he found it, and he goes, and he looked at some of the titles, and he goes, this looks like a pretty cool show. He goes, I want you to remember something for me. I said, okay. He goes, at any point during your podcast, if you get stacked up against it, and you get to that point where you think, shit, nobody's listening to this, nobody cares about this, I want you to know I walk 6 kilometers every day with my dog. And I want you to remember that there's one dude sitting on a lonely mountain in freaking Ireland listening to your show. You're doing it for me. And I was like, dude, I got me all a little choked up. I'm like, shit, that's real. I'm like, thanks, dude. I don't even know you. And my wife was like, big eyeballs and everything else. So the fact that somebody could come back to you and say, they learn Mandarin Chinese because of your stuff, dude, I get it. That's brilliant. Who cares what you made on the book? You touched a life, right? How the hell do you write 8 books? That blows me away. I look at writing something, and I don't have any learning disabilities. I don't have anything. I just have no desire, to do that kind of stuff. How do you do that? I mean, that's crazy.
Well, once you learn the process, okay, this is going into the speed learning theory, but once you learn the process of something, it gets a lot easier once you've done it 1 or 2 times, because then you have repetition, you have familiarity. The secret, because I'm going to do an experiment one of these days, Donnie, before 2019, I'm going to write a book in 5 days, a big book. And I've done it. My record right now is a 57-page book in 6 hours, beginning to end. So
Jesus.
All you have to do is front load it. And what I mean by that is make a good outline, send away for the cover, and then just sit down nonstop and just type your ass off. And it'll, if you're really focused, you can do it. It's not that hard.
Okay, so this is interesting. So I've actually attempted writing a couple books, okay? And I've got books that, over 20,000 words in one. Here's my problem I run into. I'll get to a section, and then I forget where the hell I am writing, and the whole thing becomes a jumbled mess. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that's done this. You're into it. You're like, okay, I'm going to write about this portion of my life. I'm going to have this. I'm going to have this. I'm going to have this. How do you get somebody to not go, when they're writing everything out?
The outline is the most important part, because a lot of people that just set out to write a book just think they can sit down and have creative flow and go through it. No way. If you don't want your book to take 6 months, you get a piece of paper, you write an outline, you write out every single chapter, you write out the page counts of certain sections of it, and then, your process. Once you have your outline, that's 30% right there, and it'll keep you focused. You write your chapter titles and you write your subheadings, and that'll keep you going.
Nice. Now, do you encourage somebody to, stay laser focused on one chapter at a time to move on the next, or are you really that you should knock it out in 6 hours?
I've done both. I've sat down with one of my books and I went to Starbucks and I literally wrote it from page 1 to 57, And then I've also had an ongoing book where I did the chapters when I felt the strongest creatively in whatever the subject was. So, one chapter I want to write about diagrams, and I'm feeling real good about it. So I just wrote out that chapter that day. Another chapter I wanted to write about emulation, like reverse engineering something, And so you could do it either way. It just depends on how often you're creative and in a good writing mood.
Right. From the outside perspective, that's pretty impressive, kid. I mean, for somebody that writing has not been a strength of mine, so I've never pursued it, that's a talent. Embrace the hell out of that. What's been your most successful book so far?
It's got to be the new one, The Next Level Supercharged. It's got like 5 celebrity interviews. It's got 16 learning techniques, and it's got the 5 levels of which we can learn something. And I really enjoyed writing it. I wrote it 3 different times, so it's got editions.
Oh.
So new cover, better font, better diagrams, worksheets. Like the newest one is like $16, but it's because you can apply it to almost any job or skill and get better, noticeably better.
Interesting. So and people can get that on Amazon and everything else?
Yeah, you can Google The Next Level Supercharged, Dr. Rob Garcia, and it'll pop up on Amazon or Lulu.
Nice. And we'll put a link in the show notes for it as well. So awesome. So where do you think all this is taking you, dude? I mean, you've been on a wild-ass ride, and I know I'm going to get a couple of emails, but people are like, why don't you talk more about the hoarding and all that stuff? That's only a portion of your story. I mean, you've come a long damn way, and it's really cool to watch somebody literally reach down, lace up their boots, and get to freaking work, and in my phrase, get after it, and find success enough that they can jump out on the entrepreneur journey, which I always said sales was the toughest job in the world, but being an entrepreneur trumps that 100 times full, and be able to find success enough that you're 2 years and still going strong. Where's all this going? I mean, are you going to be the next Jocko Willink or big name on stage, or are you going to stay just helping those that are willing to be helped?
Eventually, I'm going to be a level business consultant, probably have a TEDx talk and speaking on stage a lot. I've spoken in a lot of schools, just talking about my journey and talking about not giving up on yourself, like how to develop really strong mindset. That's a big one that people want to learn about. I'm a pretty angry dude, and when I live in San Diego, like I get up and I go run at the beach at like 4:30 in the morning. I'll bang out 8 miles. And Chris Hoffman once told me, "You're not like any airman I've ever met." And coming from a Marine, that's a hell of a compliment.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, well, even now, dude, if I even thought about 8 miles, I'm already tired. I tell everybody, I ran enough in the Marine Corps. I don't need to do that shit anymore. So where's it all going? I mean, are you going just big as hell, or?
I'm going to keep working on the magazine and develop it more like a business, because I've had a good run with it. It's profitable second month. I've interviewed like guys from Delta Force, SEAL Team 6,
And remind me what the name of the magazine is?
Shift Events Life Design.
Shift Events Life Design. And is it strictly an online magazine, or? Yeah. Okay. And then what's the premise of it?
The premise of it is to take a person that's a super achiever and deconstruct their process. So just like speed learning, like how did they get to this level? Like the newest issue is Dale Comstock, who's a Green Beret, Delta Force, professional bodybuilder. He's been on reality TV. Like he's an unbelievable guy. And I was able to interview him while I was deployed. And it was one of the most meaningful interviews I've ever had, because here's a guy who got his master's degree while on multiple combat deployments. He's fought in like almost every war in recent history as a member of Delta Force. And he still got his master's degree when people were telling him, hey, you won't have time to do that. You won't be able to do that. And Dale's like, really? Watch me. And he does it.
That dude's a beast. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and
my God.
That's what I love, Donnie. I love meeting these people and finding out like what do you do to create this mindset? Like, how do you, do this so well? And
yeah, because there's a phrase that a lot of gurus throw around that I hate, and what they say is winners are going to win. And what I always interpreted that is you already have to be a winner to win the game. And that drives me nuts, because I think anybody can become a winner if they're willing to. And it's not Gary Vee, just work your ass off. right? It's not Ty Lopez by having all the residual incomes, right? And it's not just mindset. It's this combination of all these things to put together to make a harmonious win to the finish line, right? And are you finding kind of the same thing, or?
I absolutely believe it. And I think the people that have the highest chance of winning are the ones that can embrace their failures, to be honest with you. I had to fall hard, Donnie, before I started seeing success. When I first launched my magazine like 3 years ago, I couldn't afford gas or meat for like 8 days. Like, it was just right back to being poor again. And I launched the magazine and I just said, the hell with it. I'm going to run with this and see where it goes. And you have to be willing to risk failure, and you have to bounce back when things don't go as they want to.
Well, interesting thing is I love I can never remember who said this quote, but it's a brilliant quote. I wish I could take credit for it. But you never fail, you quit. And there's a big difference. And, I love telling people that podcasting saved my business. Yeah. Had I not found podcasting, I would no longer be an entrepreneur, without a question, without a doubt. And I think for me, I've had to go through being punched in the face by life to find podcasting and then find how to find success within that. And I think, to your point, is people get hung up on the word failure. And I love that, just thinking about it, it's not a failure unless you quit, because all that is the next stage in the game, right?
I'll tell you, Donnie, when I was in my PhD program, I met people that were more successful than me, a lot smarter than me, and had a lot more in life to draw from resource-wise, but they quit. And I never quit. Like, even if I failed papers, even if I had to give up 3 weekends to revise a paper, my dissertation, those people quit because they weren't mentally strong. I passed because I was persistent. It had nothing to do with smarts. It had nothing to do with wealth. I just wanted it worse than they did. And that's great entrepreneurs.
Dude, and here's what I want the audience to hear about this story in particular, is your story is your success. Where you've been, what you've done, it should be your rocket fuel to get you where you want to go, right? Nothing is handed to anybody in this freaking world. You're proof of that. I mean, growing up in that environment, which I can't fathom or even wrap my head around, to probably having that in the back of your mind going, I'm not going back to that, has helped propel you to where you're going and allowed you to get into some of these cool conversations with the people you've had in your magazines.
Yeah, there was no parachute in my life, Donnie. Never. I've never had a plan of failure. I've never had anybody I could turn to if it all went to shit. And that's what makes me bold. That's what makes me take risks. That's what makes me reach out to people that are wildly more successful than I am and just approach them with confidence. Like, hey, I'm Rob Garcia. I'd love to interview you. I'd love to promote you. And that's how you network. That's how you get these guests. That's how you elevate yourself, by picking people that are higher up on the ladder than you are.
Yeah, 100%. And, authentic, genuine, all that stuff gets thrown around a lot, but you put out such a cool vibe when you're doing people are going to think I have a man crush on you at this point, but you put out this cool vibe of just really trying to help people, and it comes across. I mean, with your Facebook Lives and some of the veteran groups we share and whatnot, you're genuinely trying to give back without an angle. Where a lot of times when you hear somebody do a speech or something, there's always an angle to it, right? They're always trying to sell you something, or they're trying to bravado themselves up or whatever. You just have that cool, I don't know what to compare it to, it's that cool, low-key vibe. How do you keep that? How do you keep that when you've seen some of the successes you've had, which have been pretty cool, right? How do you keep that vibe?
Yeah, you're talking about approachability. And that's, at a certain point, a lot of successful people lose their approachability. I'll never forget that I'm just a regular dude from a small logging town who just wanted his success badly. And I remember what it's like for a lot of people to go through these trials and tribulations. And I always want to be the guy you can turn to that's reliable. And there's story I'm going to share on Facebook. Not many people know about it, but me and another Air Force vet got together and we helped out a person in my Facebook group that got stranded in New York. This person I've never met. And we got him a hotel room. We got him an Amtrak, and the gentleman is blind. He's a blind blogger, and he was in New York for an engagement, and something went wrong, and he just popped into my group. He hates to be super independent, and he just said, hey, could you guys help me? And within an hour, I had a hotel member go grab him. I had an Air Force colonel in my group, bought him his Amtrak, his bus ticket, got him back to Texas, and I'm proud to be that kind of a guy that if you get in some shit, you can turn to Rob, and he will help you.
I'm gonna remember that, and I got my Monopoly get out of jail free card now, just so you remember that when 3 o'clock in the morning you're getting a phone call and you're like, fuck, it's Donnie, I gotta go. Dude, this is awesome, man. I'm actually humbled to hear your story and hear, the journey you've been on and the shit you've been able to accomplish. It's pretty impressive, and I know humble guys don't often get proud, but I hope that some days you sit back and go, I'm freaking proud of what I've done, because it's good for you, right? It's good for you. A lot of people, as they're going through their entrepreneur journey, their business journey, their whatever, they're stacked up against it, right? And they're struggling with it. Where do you find that persistence? Where do you find that no quit? Where do you find that I'm not going to give up? Where does it come from?
It comes from the fact that a lot of people turn to me for strength. And a lot of people, whether it's clients, customers, my audience, whatever, if I can lead from the front, if I can be a person that can get stuff done, so can they. And that's what inspires me. The fact that people will contact me and be like, I love what you're doing. I don't always get a chance to talk to you and let you know, but I'm always watching your posts, watching your lives, and you make me a better person. That's what makes me get up in the morning. And that's what makes me realize, oh, hey, every crazy thing I do, the cold showers, the beach runs, the just constantly trying to rise above, people. Keep being that guy. Keep being a guy my nephews can look up to, besides crazy Uncle Rob. Somebody, a guy that makes stuff happen, keep being a super airman. Like that's it.
Right. And I'm going to give a shout out to a guy named Richard Kaufman right here, because one thing I love about Richard, the dude's everywhere, but that guy's got such a cool neck, and I'm sure you're getting the same messages. Every once in a while you'll just get a Facebook message that says, you know what, I just appreciate you. And it's just a cool thing to get, and I'd encourage, other people out there that if there's somebody that's inspiring you in your life and they're giving you real value, every once in a while, drop them a note and just say how much you value them. I do it now, and I learned it from Richard because I hadn't done that a whole lot in my life. And I'm like, that's just cool. And I hadn't done that. So now I'm doing it, with people that I look up to as mentors and whatnot. And just every once in a while, drop them a note. It's just a cool thing. So, Richard, keep that up, because I know you listen to every damn episode. So, he's a good dude. So here's what I want from you. I'm going to actually give you 5 minutes to just talk to my audience. You have free reign to tell them whatever you want to tell them to inspire, coach, learn, teach, just spit some knowledge at them. You ready for that?
Yeah.
The floor is yours, brother.
Thank you, Donnie. For everyone that's out there listening, I want to encourage you, first of all, to love yourself. And to realize that even if you don't feel like you're successful or you don't feel like you're where you want to be in life, you can always improve. And improvement starts with gradual steps. It starts with isolating what you want to be, how you're going to get there, and who can help get you there. Okay, I've done some impressive stuff, some life achievements that I'm proud of, but it all started with the mindset. It all started with believing in myself and realizing that all of us have gifts that we can utilize. So don't give up even through the hard times. I just got back from the Middle East. I did a 6-month deployment. I lost my mom to cancer 3 months in. It was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And I still managed to get my businesses going, keep things running and keep up a strong mindset. And, I've been through some challenges. And I know that a lot of you guys are going through challenges, whether it's family or illness or just general depression. But hang in there and keep pushing and keep inspiring people around you and ask for help, get some mentors. And if you need to, reach out to me. Find me on Facebook. I'm everywhere, and I will help you. That's the bottom line. If you need something, I will help you. Thanks, Donnie.
Absolutely, brother. And that's real, guys. He is that guy. He is that guy. Man, I got to tell you, this has been an honor having you on the show, bud. I'm excited to watch you continue to climb and continue to kick ass and take names. It's always fun when you can sit across from somebody has just got it, and you know that as long as they stay in the game, great things are coming for them. So keep plugging, man. Keep going. Keep kicking ass and taking names, and keep that humbleness to you, because, like you said, a lot of guys lose that on their journey, and I really, really appreciate that of it. So here's how I wrap up every freaking show. And I do stumble some people on this, so be ready. If you're going to leave my audience with one quote, one phrase, one saying, something they could take with them on their journey. Think about, if they're going through a tough time and they need a thought to run through their head to be able to pull it out of their toolbox and use it, what would that phrase be?
The phrase that I've used for every tough thing in my life, words, it can be done.
Oh, I love that. You should get that done as a T-shirt. I love that. Dude, it's been an honor having you on the show, man. I really, really appreciate it. We'll be continuing networking, and I'll open some other doors for you. It'll be fun, dude. But keep rocking and rolling, brother. Thanks for being on the show, and stay being a badass.
Thanks, Donnie. Really appreciate it.
Guys, really thank you for listening to this episode. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun putting these together. I wanted to make sure before we get out of here that you knew what we were doing with social content. What we found was, because of the podcast, we have a unique way of helping you get your social content out on a very easy way. What we're doing is we're interviewing people. And from that interview, we will capture a lot of information that will then be turned into videos, memes, articles, all things you can use for your social content. I know, like for me, one of the biggest struggles I had was, what do I put out there? What do I say on a regular basis? Well, we'll help do all that for you. So if this is at all of interest to you, reach out to us and let us help you grow your social media channel. I can tell you I did this for my business, and my social media is completely taking off. My Instagram, since I started doing this, jumped to over 10,000 followers, and it continues to grow. So if this is at all of interest to you, check the bottom of the show notes for the link that says, "Get my social content done" right now.